Got some more Midjourney styles for you today. Add these to the end of your prompt separated by a comma and you'll get results similar to the ones I'm about to show. Now this video is all these styles were submitted by viewers of the channel, and I want to thank everyone for submitting. I've got so many come in that I had to actually split this up into 2 videos, so the second video will be released next week. The first is Morpheus2573 sent through these 6 styles. Morpheus comments a lot. He's a lot of fun, and I really love these styles he sent through, so I thought I'd start strong with them. The first is Psychological Gothic Steampunk. We've all seen steampunk before, but these added words do add a layer of coolness. I really love the look on this. We've got that steampunk look on the woman's face, and just a real, like a little bit of a different sort of layout than usual. Add it to Darth Vader, and it has changed the look of him so dramatically. A lot of bronze, and of course the goggles. I really love the sort of like modifications it's made to his look. Now the Terminator looks the same, except he has a bronze sort of steel instead of that silver color. And if you look inside, you can see little gears inside of his head. Everything's just slightly modified to have that steampunk sort of machine feel to it. Overall, I think this one was really cool. And Barbie, Psychological Gothic Steampunk, the way she's dressed, everything in the background, just the overall look with the bronze, the black, the gears. It's really done an awesome job at creating some very interesting images. And Superman, the cape and the buckles and everything added to him. This is a different sort of Superman than I think I've ever seen before. I don't know if there's something in the comics. I don't follow it that closely. But the modifications, again, very cool and a hell of a lot of fun. I recommend having a play with this one. The next is Psychological Industrial Horror. So some of these are going to be a little bit crazy, and some of the ones in this video are probably going to be a little bit full on. So just a warning before we go ahead. And we have the woman's face, and just there's nothing too disturbing about this. Just that dark, cracked sort of concrete look. Very cool, and it's the theme of it is very horror-esque and very kind of like dull, dead, and damaged. I kind of like the overall layout. Moving on to the Incredible Hulk, looks like an old black and white movie, much like some of the other ones we've seen in the past. But that look on his face, that wet, high contrast lighting, very, very old-fashioned, like an old horror movie. And the Terminator, the way it's blended the endoskeleton with the hair and skin. Actually, this one just kind of looks a little bit ridiculous, but it's funny. It looks pretty cool, but the dull lighting and the way that the blacks are not that real proper dark black, but that lightened sort of old look has an element of horror style to it in the way that it's sort of composed, like the color and the lighting. And I really think it's a cool photographic style. And Superman, the industrial horror, you can see it's almost like he's trapped inside an industrial machine and he can't escape. Like a death machine, lots of like pieces, and kind of reminds me a little bit of like the end of Terminator 1, but with Superman trapped inside of something. Not quite that, but you get what I'm saying. Surreal image mashup. This is kind of like double exposure, but a lot more creative and out there. Move on to the woman's face. You got several faces and the cracks and all the sort of like, it almost looks like sticky tape in some areas. A very unique image, and this particular style gives you some really cool images, and you don't know what to expect. So I definitely recommend having a play. You move on to Barbie, and the way it's added several different sort of images on the side, it's a very kind of modern look, different than what I expected. But I did get this in a few little areas, but nothing else in this particular run. But a few other images I tried and didn't use had kind of a similar look to them. Terminator, the overlay of lights and the second face just off to the right, really just awesome impact and effect. I really like just the way it works. This is just really unique. And Superman, we've got the city, we've got another city behind him, the clouds. This looks like very intentional design, which I think AI quite often doesn't always get, but in this one it's done a really good job of finding that balance. It also looks old-fashioned, like a really old movie, and I just think the overall impact, again, really, really cool. And the Hulk. We see the Hulk, we see an overlay of another face off to the left, some more rocks, bits and pieces, just images over images, and again, just cool abstract style. And now we have Otherworld Grotesquerie. Some of these are pretty out there, but we'll move on. So woman's face, this one just looks kind of creepy with the blurred, sort of with the funny lighting, just like a horror movie effect. But you move on to Darth Vader, and this is probably the most disturbing image I have, so sorry about that, but just the look, the way the teeth stick out of the bottom, the eyes, it looks disgusting, but it's so unique, I had to share it. So I do apologize if this is a little bit insane. And Superman, now the way he's kind of like busted open and there's skulls and bits and pieces coming out of the head, that I think is a little bit different and a bit cool. Not quite what I expected, but a really cool phrase to play with. And Samurai standing in front of Mount Fuji isn't grotesque at all. However, I do love the way it's focused more on the mask and kind of that monster sort of dragon or lion face that goes in the mask. So instead of actually making the person more grotesque and modifying it, it's focused on those areas more and brought that out. And this is I really like the way this image turned out. Future unfolding. This one can be a bit hard to pin down what happens, but it does seem to have something of an impact. So like you can see here how we've kind of got this swirly appearance on the right. That does happen with a few images. If I move on to the woman's face, you can kind of see a bit of an effect like that, the swirliness and a bit of a futuristic color scheme. Moving on to a beautiful waterfall in nature. For some reason, it's changed the waterfall and made it this giant multi-level style waterfall, which I think is it's pretty cool, pretty different. And Barbie, she looks like a cyborg, doesn't look that much like Barbie except for the color scheme, and very interesting the way this one turned out. And Darth Vader, not quite as interesting as Barbie, but the effect of the lines, and it almost like a little bit of a gamble. You don't know what effect you're going to get when you try this phrase, but it always adds something. So I do recommend having a play with it. Animated film pioneer. This really creates like a movie style of like an animated film. Obviously has animated film in the phrase. So a woman's face, you can see we've got an animated style woman's face, although it looks more like a painting, but you can see like the line work and the shape and style of the painting, or I should say the line work itself, really looks like a cartoon. Superman looks like an old cartoon from maybe the 80s or something like that, or like even older than that possibly. But that style of drawing looks more old-fashioned. I don't know if that makes sense. Hard for me to nail down what's in my head with this one, but it's kind of like a mix of like shading and things that you would see in a newer cartoon, I guess. But line works and style of drawing is kind of like a much older cartoon Superman. You move on to the Terminator, and this looks like a cool cartoon version of the Terminator, almost like somewhat anime of the Terminator, but with that thicker, more sort of Western kind of line work. I don't know if that really makes sense, but overall, cartoon Terminator looks pretty cool, and I'd definitely watch that if it was a movie. And Darth Vader, I think they've made him a Lego Darth Vader. Don't know why, but still pretty cool. And now we've got Arnie Bosis. I don't know if I'm saying that correct, but he's got two prompts for me, Meteor Art and Smoke Art. And these turn out really good, especially Smoke Art. If you look at the effect it has on the image, the smoke coming off of the main subject, you can see it here with the woman's face. It looks like she's almost smoking a cigarette, but without the cigarette. And the way the smoke is sort of emanating from the lips and nose and facial features, I think is a really, really nifty effect. Also, the Terminator, similar thing, like he's overheating. Smoke is coming from all parts of the side of his face. And the black and white just adds a really nice element of cool and artistic to it. And the Hulk, again, smoking from sort of like the eyebrows and mouth, and it's like he's just creating smoke with his movement, and it's just, again, really cool. And Superman, he is a walking, smoking person. Like even that little bit of heat, the way we got the red glow down there, kind of adds like a bit of a fiery type element to it, but it just kind of looks like something of a smoky kind of creature walking, and just, I don't know, just an effect, a cool effect. And the beautiful waterfall nature has added sort of like a smoky appearance to it, which you could say is like, mist or steam or something like that. But the way it's added the smoke in, I thought was nifty, and so I thought I'd include it. And Mickey Mouse. This one, very unique and different. He's almost like inverted, like a ghost, smoking like a smoke ghost of Mickey Mouse. And Samurai standing in front of Mount Fuji, lots of smoke around him. I really appreciate the blues and the pinks, and that little bit of orange off the left. It's got a really interesting touch of color to that smoke and makes this image a little more unique than usual. Meteor art, this tends to add sort of like some meteor type elements to the image. If you got the woman's face, you can see it kind of looks like there's meteors shooting past her face and a star field in front. And again, Pikachu, he looks like he himself is the meteor with flames shooting out of one particular part of his anatomy, which I think is pretty pretty different, but I had a bit of a chuckle, so I thought I'd put it in here. And the futuristic car, the star field in the sky and like that meteor line going through, looks really kind of like retro futurism, really nifty effect. And samurai standing in front of Mount Fuji. There's a meteor shooting over Mount Fuji in a fiery sort of sky. This looks like it could be something you'd use for like a movie cover or something like that. Just a really kind of, it's that real mystical energy sort of feel to it. Another one we have, I like the new X-Punk combos, so that's like things like steampunk, cyberpunk, that kind of thing. He loves to see those. But today he said, have you tried the phrase vinyl picture disc? Because I have done record art or vinyl record art, but vinyl picture disc, you get a similar effect, but in many ways a little bit more dialed in, I think. The text on the label here, I think, really adds something to it. Moving on to the woman's face, it's had a very unique way of applying the woman's face in different ways to that disc. So that one was a little bit more unique. Moving on to the Terminator, we've got a nice vinyl record with the Terminator's face on it. And again, it's added the endoskeleton, but eyes, teeth, and hair. The way it mixes those all together, I think, is pretty cool. And Superman, it's like Superman the record. You pop that in your record player, and that's really, really cool style of art. It's like something you would have seen in an old comic. And the Hulk, same thing again. Very cool art style, very true to the Hulk, but on a vinyl record, and just a really, really cool effect. Now, the futuristic car, I actually just really like the image. Take the actual vinyl disc away, and the way that the cars around it are motion blurred. And we've got the rain, everything is kind of got that motion blur feel to it, like a long shutter image, but the car being perfectly still. Kind of like it's like a solid car that has presence in the middle of something, like where everything's moving. I really like that overall effect, and of course the colors used for it as well. And here we have, make a series of images in the style of Dan Mumford. I added in the style of Dan Mumford, got some really cool results. So you can see here, the drawing style, lots of really dark, sort of dark blacks or dark blues, but some like really highlighted sort of line work to create the colors. So you move into here, a woman's face. You can see how we've got those really dark sort of blacks off to the side, and that really solid, almost vector style line work for the hair, and just the way it's added in the elements, solid colors, but drawn with high detail, sort of against each other. Really cool effect. And the Hulk, I really love this image. It's kind of like Hulk looking at Hulk himself, but if you look at his back and the lightning and the way the lines are drawn with those vibrant colors, the way it kind of has a series of 3 or 4 colors from light to dark drawn in solid line work, I think turns out really cool, although it's a little bit blended in this, but when you are looking at it from squinting a little bit, it does have that line work sort of effect. Mickey Mouse, same again, but a little bit creepier. I really appreciate the style with the one eye bigger than the other and the quirkiness that it's added to it. So it hasn't just gone for the line work and the shading style, but the quirkiness, which I think is pretty cool. And of course, the futuristic car. This looks like a really cool drawing. I love it. It just has a real kind of upper class kind of chic look to it, and turned out really well. And Superman looking over the city. I haven't put looking over the city in there, by the way. I just put Superman in the style of Dan Mumford. He's looking over the city, and the drawing style, the way that they have the yellow and the pinks as the highlights and the blues as the dark areas. It's done a really good job of contrasting light and dark with this. And it just goes to show you the power of AI art and the way it works. It's really quite intelligent in the way it uses the use of color to illustrate light and shade. Beautiful waterfall in nature, a little less in that style, but it's still reminiscent, kind of like a more detailed version of it, but overall still a pretty cool image. Now I got this email from Aziz, I believe it's Aziz anyway, I could be saying it wrong, sent through a whole bunch of stuff, some more that I'm not actually showing here, but if we zoom in, you see we've got Dofus style, Call of Duty, and I have done Anaglyph and Kintsugi, but I haven't done Black Light. So, Dofus style, now this is a really, really visual style, and you can see with the woman's face, it does have that real cartoony look to it, and just the big eyes and the yellow pupils, I think, adds something to that face. But the really red nose, a lot of contrast in the style. And Hulk, he's kind of like got a different style again, matching that style, that cartoony style, but like a few little extra elements where they've added plants growing out of him and wood and logs. A really cool mixture of nature, if that makes sense. And Pikachu looks like a warrior in a game. So I'm not familiar with Dofus personally. I think it's a game, but This looks like a character you would see in like an RPG style game, so I think that's kind of what it's going for. I really love the way it's changed his character with the outfit. Samurai standing in front of Mount Fuji doesn't look greatly different, but something about the way the character stands and some of the color that just manipulates it slightly. I thought it was worth sharing. And Superman, this one I think looks really cool. The way he's got the glowing fist and the different outfit. The S is always spot on, but it looks like that boy version of Superman with the the little kids sort of like style build. And the Terminator, completely different look to the Terminator. Has the right elements in there, but it's really made it unique and done its own with it own sort of like spin on the Terminator. Call of Duty, you can see here, Call of Duty, it's just like some war imagery, like the game Call of Duty, but you put Barbie in there, and all of a sudden she's dressed up in military garb, ready to go out and shoot bad guys. You do the same thing with the Hulk. He's a little less green in the face, but that military style, this would be a cool version of Hulk to see, even though he obviously doesn't need a gun to really do a lot of damage, considering he's the Hulk. But I like the visual, nonetheless. Pikachu, again, he is ready to go into battle. Very cool sort of manipulation again. And the waterfall in nature, nothing military about it except the color scheme. It looks very much like it has a camo type color scheme to the photo. So it does have impact even if it's not adding uniforms to certain characters. Superman, now he, again, dressed in a military uniform, ready to go into battle. And I love that it has a few extra things around him. And the beard I thought was a nice touch, and overall just a cool military version of Superman, which I thought turned out alright. And now Mickey Mouse as well. I love the fact that it has Mickey Mouse and it has the uniform, but he still has the gloves with the 3 stripes above the knuckles. I kind of like that they were turned into really realistic, almost tactical looking gloves, but referencing those old cartoony style gloves that he had back in the earlier days as a cartoon character. Black light. We all have heard of black light and the fact that it kind of has a blue tint and brings out different colors. A woman's face, you can see she has sort of glow-in-the-dark paint and bits and pieces on her face, and the black light is bringing that out. You move on to the Hulk and you've got this really cool glowing effect. Also a slightly out of focus effect, which I do appreciate because sometimes you can focus too much on getting things to look sharp, and this really has that almost TV screen shot style to it. And I appreciate the analog kind of feel it represents while still having those very vibrant colors. Move on to Superman. The glowing eyes is really cool. It's almost like a little bit of an infrared style, but just a really interesting use of colors for this imagery. And the futuristic car. Actually just a scene with a cool futuristic car, but it has some black lights in it and adds a nice neon vibe. Moving on to the modern family home. Now this would be a pretty cool home to hang out with and have a party. You know, you got like the black lights, has almost disco feel to it, but very modern, very cool. And Barbie, she has a lot of paint on her that obviously the black light brings out, and overall an interesting effect, an interesting use of colors for this image. And of course the samurai standing in front of Mount Fuji. Again, bits and pieces being highlighted with the black light, and I just think it's a really nifty sort of spin on what would normally be a very dry, outdoorish looking outfit. It just adds an interesting spin of color to it. Finally, the Terminator. That red glow, this is more of just a color difference and less about the blue light, I think. But the way it's added the hair again, just a cool impact on that image. And those are the images for today, guys. And next week, we'll go through the other half of these images. But if you're viewing this in the future, I'll pop a video card on the screen right now. You can check that out and watch that straight away. Otherwise, simply check out my channel. If you want to make sure you're notified, be sure to subscribe so you can see the next one. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you again next time.